Hello there, everyone. Okay, this is going to be interesting. So, I just found out a little while ago that today is International Podcast Day. So, as I've been thinking about getting back into the habit of doing podcasts and live streams, I figured this would be a good time to start. And also because there are some things that I feel like I need to talk about because, for one thing, I have not prepared for this at all. I'm really just doing this as a last minute thing, and yeah, like I said, I just a couple of hours ago found out that it's International Podcast Day. So this is going to be very hurriedly put together. And I feel like that shouldn't be too much of a problem because I don't really want to do the usual thing. I don't think I'm going to talk about. I might actually talk about a couple of films like I would normally do with Podflix. But the thing is, because it's just sort of been a bit difficult deciding which film to talk about. So yeah, I might just do a version of Podflix where I talk about maybe a couple of films that I've seen since the last recording that I did. Also, I want to talk about what's going to happen, like what changes I'm going to make to this podcast, because there is quite a significant change that might happen, that's very likely to happen. Sorry, I was going to... So yeah, and this is just, every time one of these things happens, because I don't know if International Podcast Day means an awful lot, but I have this podcast and I'd like to. I was thinking I'll definitely do a live stream, because that way I'll definitely have it up on YouTube on the correct day. Whether or not I have time to put the audio version on iTunes and all of that, only time will tell. Normally I would have a 6-minute shout out, so I don't know what I'm going to do about that. I suppose the 6-minute shout out could actually be today. It could be podcast day. That's what the shout out is a shout out to that event. So after that, I would then do Podflix, and then there's the Odyssey Express. It used to be called the Infinity Express, and I decided to go for something a little bit more original, a bit of just make it seem like I'm not trying to rip anyone off. Again, don't know how I'm going to get to do that today, but this is quite important. This is quite a significant episode because things are changing. I think one thing that's always bothered me is my website is called Belugatoons, and I'm quite pleased that I've kept it going for almost a decade now. It's getting very close. Like my YouTube channel is very nearly 10 years old. I think it may have been about 6 months after I started this YouTube channel that I put together the website. I think that was a bit later. Can't quite remember, but Belugatoons began with YouTube, and so I do have an event that I suppose one of the things that I will be talking about a little bit later on is the anniversary event. Belugatoons is a name that I came up with because I like beluga whales, and I do cartoons. And it's a bit of a complicated thing. Like when I tell people that's what my website's called, they kind of give me a funny look because it's not a word, and it's quite a long thing to remember. It's just not the most practical thing. And I was just thinking for a podcast, because I like the fact that I've had a podcast and it's been going for several years now, but I feel like I want something that I'll just be able to say to people, yeah, I do this thing and it has a very simple title. You shouldn't have any difficulty remembering it. So I kind of narrowed it down to either Andrew's podcast, that's just very straightforward, straight to the point, or maybe Andrew's project. And I think just maybe this is the logo I came up with. As you can see, the blue kind of matches. So let's just imagine now that is the new one, the new logo. And that was the first image the first design that I did. There is also another one somewhere. What did I do with it? This might take. This is where it's going to be a bit unprofessional. I haven't done anything to prepare this one. I don't know. Oh yeah. So if anyone is listening to an audio version of this, yeah, I did that. I also did like a graphic, which I can't import, but that's okay. You don't really need to see. Yeah, people listening, I'm going through pictures on my hard drive now, so this is a bit of a visual. This is the visual part. I'll do my best to describe. Okay, so the new logo, to people who can't see this, is like a floppy disk with just the word Andrew's Podcast scribbled on the label. And I have done a second version because, as I say, I might call it Andrew's Project. But I think with both versions, I want to make sure that the text, the way that I've written the title, can be separated. I need to save it as a layered. Excuse me, as a layered file. Because that way I can reuse it in other different ways. So I'm still working on that, but I'm pretty sure that's what I want to do because, this has been called the Belugatoons podcast for a really long time, and I'm not really going to change the content of the podcast. I mean, that's just something that kind of evolves over time. It might become. It's either going to become Andrew's podcast or Andrew's project, and I think the reason that I kind of prefer Andrew's project is, first of all, that actually looks like the kind of thing you'd see scribbled down on an old floppy disk, and also Andrew's podcast just seems a bit too, I don't know, there's something a little bit arrogant, I think, arrogant sounding about that. It doesn't sound enough like a joke. What I like about Andrew's project is it's a bit jokey. It's kind of acting like this is. It is the sort of thing that you just expect to see, like on my computer in a folder or something, and I like that title best, I think. So it's. I think I'm going to take that down because it hasn't happened yet. It hasn't been made official. Because I'm going to have to redesign like the Twitter. I mean, I haven't put anything on the podcast Twitter feed for quite a long time. And I'm trying to, because I'm going to try and get through this stream, doing as much verbal stuff as I can, because there are lots of things I'd like to show you, but you have to be watching the YouTube version for that. Is there much else? So, like I said, the 6-minute shout out this week. I don't think I'm going to bother playing the internet wheel sound effect, because basically you already know what it is. There's no build up to this. Sorry, the lighting isn't very good in here. Let's close the blinds. Don't need the blinds open. You can see me all right, can't you? Let's turn the brightness up on. Make my face a bit bluer. Yeah, I actually did do TV production at university. You would never think that. Yeah, just these aren't the best conditions for doing. You can see me all right. It doesn't matter. Some of you can't. Some of you are listening to this on iTunes. So yeah, that's what I've just been doing. I've just been adjusting the light. I've got the main light on, you see, so it's not a big problem. I'm getting sidetracked now. Today is International Podcast Day. I was not aware of that. I should probably keep this in my diary for future events. So is it always the last day? I suppose it's not hard to remember. It's the same day as the birthday of one of my family members, and that makes it easier. Makes it easier to remember. So all I can think to do now is look up International Podcast Day and read about it, because it just usually helps if I have something that I can read. And there is a whole website. Let's learn a bit about International Podcast Day. International Podcast Day is September the 30th and is an international celebration of the power of podcasts. The celebration is a great opportunity to connect with fellow podcasters, podcast listeners, podcast enthusiasts, and leaders in the podcasting industry. Help spread the word by telling your friends, sharing the celebration on your podcasts and social media feeds, and using International Podcast Day hashtag. There are several ways to get involved and plenty to benefit from by taking part in International Podcast Day. See our suggestions below. But first, we must all start the conversation and share the power of podcasts. The history, just as podcasts and podcasting has evolved over the past 14 years, International Podcast Day has done the same. In 2014, International Podcast Day was celebrated with 6 hours of broadcasting. After quickly realizing the power of podcasts internationally, we rebranded into what we are today, International Podcast Day. Between 2015 and 2017, we broadcasted 100 hours around the globe, inviting podcasters and industry leaders from 55 different countries to share their podcast journeys, personal stories, and expertise. It is important to recognize the history, but move forward, celebrating the power of podcasts. Right, then there's a whole section about what can you do on International Podcast Day. Get involved in International Podcast Day, use the hashtag, obviously. Not a podcaster, become one. Who hasn't at this point? It's just, everyone's got a podcast. There's a lot. So it's basically what they're saying is podcasts are awesome. Let's celebrate them on this day. Promotional material. Sharing on website, social media, and podcast. Okay, there is a little audio promo as well. Shall I play that? I've got it all set up so that we should be able to hear it. Okay,
International Podcast Day is September 30th, and you can help spread the word. You may be asking, what can I do to get involved? It's pretty simple. Head over to internationalpodcastday.com and check the suggestions. Then use hashtag International Podcast Day to join the conversation. You can reach out and connect with other podcasters, listeners, and your favorite podcast hosts. Remember September 30th, International Podcast Day, a day-long celebration of the power of podcasts.
Okay, I hope you heard that. I don't know if I've set everything up properly, but yeah, let's have a look at the Instagram. Is that 6 minutes yet? I think it might have been 6 minutes. I haven't been timing myself. Ahem. So yeah, I mean, it's a thing apparently. I'm really bigging it up, aren't I? I'm going to leave it at that, because all I have to say is, yeah, I like podcasting. It's a lot of fun. It doesn't seem to matter how many listeners you have or anything. Just whatever gives you a chance to be creative. And I like situations like this where I'm just sort of put myself in a position where I have to wing it and just put the whole thing together on the spot. That's why, because I think it's nice to do like a professionally recorded podcast. I'm not professional. I'm not saying I'm a professional. But yeah, like when I record each episode with Audacity and edit it and put it all together before I upload it to Acast, that's always great because I can get it sounding exactly as I want it. But every month I like to do a live version because it becomes more of a spontaneous thing. There's something exciting about live streams, about how you just sort of go ahead and hope that everything works out nicely. Part of the fun is things not always working out. I find that when I do the drawing room live streams, the worst case scenario is usually that it won't quite I won't quite commit to it as best I can. It might just be a mediocre drawing that I end up doing. But yeah, it is fun how I think it's been a real learning curve, especially with all of the issues that I've had with rendering lag that have just made me not only take a break from doing live streams because I just couldn't do them, but also to slow down and just stop doing all of the online stuff that I was, and it's helped me to think more about what I'm actually doing and what I intend to do in future. Because as I enter the 10th year of Belugatoons, I'm thinking I feel like it'd be worth doing more comic book stuff, because I was doing a whole series of comic books that I was self-publishing, and it was just so wonderful that I was able to do that, and it wasn't really costing me anything. There was no pressure on me to get them sold, because I feel like that's what can spoil it for me. I love the fact that when I make my own comic book, I'm not depending on anyone to take interest in it. It's just, I can do this, so I will. That's art. Yeah, and so I'm kind of going off topic, I suppose. But yeah, so yeah, doing these has it's helped me. It helped me come up with ideas and work things out. And I think really live streams more so, like, because the podcast is just where I sort of reflect on things and just talk, think aloud, and yeah, I mean, I have, like, Odyssey Express is an example of how I have something in which I can it's a creative exercise. So that specifically has helped me to come up with new ideas and all sorts of things, and learn about storytelling a bit more. Just get a bit of a better idea of how I can be creative. But aside from that, I think it more so is, just using live streams to do my my drawings and sort of have an audience while I draw. That has really changed things a lot, and I think because it changes the way I do things. Like when I'm not necessarily doing something because I want to share it with everybody. Like at the start of the most recent drawing room live stream that I did, I showed a quick slideshow of a lot of the images that hadn't yet been seen on. Like a lot of them were on my Instagram, but there might have been a couple that I hadn't even put on Instagram. I don't know. So my point is, podcasts are great, but I'm really getting into live streaming as a way of being creative, and my voice is going. I think I'm drying up a bit. Might need another glass of water. I tell you what, shall I play the Thump promo, because that'll give me some time to go and wet my whistle. Okay, here we go.
Hi, we're here on the street asking people about the Fump. Excuse me, sir, do you know what the Fump is?
The what?
The Fump. F-U-M-P.
Oh, I don't know, but it doesn't sound appetizing. I don't want any.
Isn't that the sound a groundhog makes when you run over it with your car?
No. Can you tell me what the Fump is?
Is it the enemy in the next Spider-Man movie?
I don't think so.
A clean-burning car that runs on pancakes?
What?
Isn't that the stuff the Nutty Professor invented?
No, that's flubber. The Fump. What is the Fump?
Ooh, it's a dog. I think it's half Great Dane, half Chihuahua.
Is that even possible?
Sounds like something you get from a cheap hooker.
Oh, come on, no. Doesn't anyone around here know what the Fump is?
I do, but I'm a paid announcer with a script in front of me that explains it.
Fine. Go do your thing.
The Fump is the Funny Music Project. It's a website where comedy musicians post funny songs and parodies. New songs are uploaded every Tuesday and Friday. The songs are available for free download from thefump.com or automatically via our podcast feed. The Fump features some of the biggest names in comedy music from the Dr. Demento Show, including the great Luke Ski, Robert London Spav, Devo Spice, Worm Quartet, Rob Balder, Possible Oscar, Tom Smith, Raymond and Scum, Power Salad, Bob Ricci, Carla Ulbrich, Steve Goody, Paul and Storm, and Jonathan Colton. High-quality downloads and compilation CDs are also available. Find us at www.thefump.com or look us up on iTunes. And for behind-the-scenes discussions on the songs posted to the Fump, listen to the Funny Music Podcast.
Thank you. See, people, was that so hard?
So it is something you get from a cheap hooker. Look, the one I was with last Friday sold me a copy of the Volume 10 compilation CD.
I quit. I'm going home.
The Fump. It's not something you get from a cheap hooker. Usually.
Okay, now I'm going to play this once again at long last. So yeah, I haven't really known exactly what to do with this segment because the way I would normally do it is each time I talk about a film on this podcast, afterwards I'll let you know what I'm gonna watch, so then I'll talk about in the next episode. But it's all been a bit difficult to settle on a film for the past few episodes. So yeah, I thought what I might do here is talk about a couple of films that I've seen fairly recently. The first one is Florence Foster Jenkins, and the other one is Human Highway. Because I just happened to watch these. Excuse me. As I say, quite recently, and yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on them, because I spent a bit of time with my parents because they were house sitting for my sister and brother-in-law over in Bath, and yeah, this is a film that we watched while we were together, and so my parents told me that they had previously seen this film on an airplane, and they really enjoyed it. They found it very funny. It stars Meryl Streep, Hugh Grant, and Simon Helberg. And yeah, so they told me a few things about it, and it's one of those things I kind of thought, all right, that sounds really nice. But actually watching it was a really fun experience. Like actually seeing the whole thing in context, like because they tell me all I need to know without spoiling anything. Because if you like Meryl Streep, then I can almost guarantee you'll love this film. I think because it was on BBC iPlayer. I don't think it is anymore. I think it's gone now. It's a bit of a shame. That's one of the reasons that I wish that I'd done this sooner, because it has been a long time since I last did an episode. And so, yeah, this was one that I was hoping to do while it was still on iPlayer. But it's one of those things, it will probably turn up on there again at some point. It might be on Netflix. I'm not entirely sure. I've not checked Netflix for a long time. Anyway, the story of Florence Foster Jenkins, a New York heiress who dreamed of becoming an opera singer despite having a terrible singing voice. So there are a few things I can talk about there. So it's a biopic, basically. This is based on a true story. And yeah, so Florence Foster Jenkins apparently did have this dream of becoming an opera singer, and became famous for reasons other than what she hoped for. It's a story similar to like what happened with Edward D. Wood and Tommy Wiseau, people who wanted to be remembered for being incredible artists, but instead just became they're sort of laughed at. But I think what makes this, I think, a great little detail, because it's not inherently entertaining to watch someone sing badly. If you're just singing badly as part of the role that you're playing, that's not necessarily going to be enough. What Meryl Streep managed to do was make it look like she really believed in herself, and she was really putting a lot of effort into singing like opera style, because it's a specific style of music, and that was, I think, for me, what made it work. The thing that made it entertaining is that you really felt like she's hearing an amazing voice, because she keeps putting this expression. Her facial expression is almost like she's amazed that this is how she can sing. She really feels like she's knocking it out of the park. And you see her with her vocal coach, and you can believe that she feels like she's come a long way and she's improved. But you can also tell what her audience are gonna, how they're going to react, and a lot of them find it incredibly funny. And I thought that it was very well done, because it's not like this character is a terrible singer and no one can stand to listen to her. It is very fun. All of it is very fun. And Hugh Grant is, I think what's interesting is, I don't know if it's something to do with his age, but he does seem to be playing his characters quite differently now. There is more, like, I kept thinking of Tim Curry, actually, like Tim Curry in films like Clue. That just the sort of poshness that he, because he always plays a posh character. We all know that. But when he was younger, like, because I've already talked about a Hugh Grant film, that was the one, the really strange one. What was it called? I can't remember. The one from the 90s. I can't remember. But I don't know. Somehow he's a bit more different. Like there's a bit more kind of eccentricity to the way he plays his parts. I don't know. I can't keep talking for too long because I have a second film I want to get to. But I definitely would. I watch that one again? Oh yes, absolutely. I thought it was very funny, very very satisfying. It's just it's kind of a feel good film. Florence Foster Jenkins. And so here's the second film that I have for this episode: Human Highway, 1982. Directors Dean Stockwell and Neil Young. And it stars Neil Young, Russ Tamblyn, and Dean Stockwell. I don't know exactly how to describe this film. It's very strange. I found myself comparing it to films like True Stories, the David Byrne Talking Heads movie, and actually this was before that. This is about 4 years earlier, and also the Beatles' Magical Mystery Tour, because I feel like I keep seeing films that are more weird than they are kind of satisfying, because this film is quite well made. I think it was definitely well casted. Each of the characters are played extremely well. Who does Dennis Hopper play? Oh yeah, Cracker, and also Stranger apparently. His character is quite memorable. I feel like I wish they'd done a bit more to, because a lot of it takes place in the same location. It's just like this cafe, and there's this whole thing about pollution and nuclear waste. Devo play the part of these waste managers, and Boogie Boy is there. That's one thing that makes it really weird, because I feel like it would have been like a standard 80s dark comedy if you took Boogie Boy out of it, because that's kind of the giveaway that this is sort of a vehicle for Neil Young, I suppose, and Devo. And the thing is, there is a bit of an uncomfortable level of sort of involvement musically. You get very early in the film, you get a song from Devo, which is like a reimagining of the song Worried Man's Blues. I think that's what it's called. I don't know a lot about the original song, but it's like a short rendition that they do, and it's quite catchy. Like, because I always love their music. It sort of is really just the main reason that I wanted to see this film, because I knew that scene because they used that as the video, and I wanted to see the film in context. But I really don't know how to feel about it. And like I said, I think there are definitely some good things in there, because they have real actors. A lot of the people who turn up, they even the ones who aren't in the film that much, they play the parts really well. It's just really weird though when all of a sudden Boogie Boy shows up, and it's like this is a Devo video. This is everything else about the film kind of works as yeah, it's just sort of a regular film that isn't about shoehorning in songs and things. It could have been a musical. Like I suppose I never really know how to criticize something because I don't know how I would have done it. Whether you make it more of a musical, I think one of these things should have been done. They should maybe have more songs in it and more of a variety, because they use the Road Man Blues song multiple times in this film, and I think because there are so many different characters, if you had singers portraying these characters showing up like in the Blues Brothers, do something like that. You could have done it that way, or just take all the music out of it. Don't make it about songs, because the character that Neil Young plays in this, he isn't like he's sort of like an aspiring musician, but you could just leave that out. There is a lot that this film could have been. So like I as I say, wasn't satisfied with it so much, but it's very interesting. And it's on YouTube, so you don't have to pay money to watch it. I thought I wasn't ever going to see this film, because it wasn't until a couple of years ago, I think, that it actually had a commercial release, if I'm not mistaken. For a long time, it was a film that I'd heard about, but didn't seem to be able to get hold of. It didn't seem to be available, and now it is. So maybe have a look on YouTube, see what you think. Human Highway, 1982. Would I watch it again? I think I would. I think I would, because it's so weird. It's definitely not my favourite film, but I feel like I need to see it again, because if you don't pay attention to it closely enough, certain things can get very confusing. So I think it's worth more than one watch, just to sort of try, make a bit more sense of it. Maybe it's a grower. Maybe I'll like it more the second time round. Anyway, so that was my extra long edition of Podflix, and as I've been recording for quite a long time now, I think I might try and get things to a close, because I don't even have time to do anything with like the Odyssey Express or anything like that. This has been this is a special day. We should be celebrating. It's International Podcast Day. What do you have planned? What do you think you might do with this? I'm running out of ways in which I can make this episode special. I think it has been a bit longer than they usually are. But yeah, I think I've said all I have to say about National Podcast Day. And once again, I suppose. Oh, was I going to say more about? I just remembered. I said I was going to talk about the Belugatoons 10-year anniversary. I've designed the cake. No joking around. Every year I design a cake. I'm probably going to make a video. I'm going to put up a video of that as well, because I have the sheet of icing with my design on it. So what I have to do now is make the cake. So this is exciting. It's going to be 10 years. The 10-year anniversary will be on the 2nd of November, because it was the 2nd of November 2008 that I started the Belugatoons channel, and that's really where it all started. That's where Eugene made his first appearance. So I'm looking forward to that, and I'm going to do a special live stream, hopefully, if nothing stands in my way of doing a live stream. I did have an idea to get some guests, but I mean that was long before I started having these problems with the rendering lag and that getting in the way of everything. So because of that, it's now going to be really hard, because I've not sorted that out. I didn't know if it was going to be worth it. But what I think I will be doing is maybe just taking a look back at all those years, and whatever I can find that is like a little bit of memorabilia of the past 10 years of me doing things like this. Because I'm thinking I might play the first episode, because it's very short. I might play the first episode of this podcast, just to show how things have changed. Like my voice does seem to be very different now than it was those however many years ago it was. So things like that. It'll be a special celebration here on this channel, and I hope to see you there. And I might play the recording I did of me designing the cake, and all sorts of other things. It'll be an emotional look back at the past 10 years, and I don't think it's going to end here, because it does almost feel like I've reached the end of a long project, but because I've built up so much the website has sort of been a building project, and so is this podcast. I hope to carry on. I hope to, as I say, let things evolve and take on new forms. But yeah, I'm just going to keep at it. Basically, what you're seeing when you see me do, I try not to keep putting my hands in front of my face like that. I don't know why I'm doing that. There's not really much. Yeah, for people listening to this, I'm flapping my hands about. It's probably very distracting. But that's it. That's all I have to say, really. Thanks for listening to this special episode. And I can't promise a new episode every week, but this might be the last time you see the words "The Belugatoons Podcast." Look, there's people on YouTube. That's the old header. But I don't think I can use that anymore, because it's not going to be called that. I'm going to change it. I'm going to do it. Going to change the name. Something easier to remember. Okay, thanks everybody for tuning in to this. Happy International Podcast Day, everybody. And bye-bye. Oh, wait a minute. Usually I put up the end screen, don't I? Oh, wait, yeah. We don't want the countdown. Ignore the countdown. See, this is what I'm saying. It's exciting when you do things live. Yeah, okay. Where's the closing?
When I grow up...
no, not that. That one. It's live. This is what happens. Thanks for listening.